welcome to, where am I? Oh, there I am. Hello and welcome to Take This. My name is Brad LaPlante. Griff will be, well, he's actually out. He's on a well-earned vacation for Griff today. We are excited for episode number 38. Thank you to everyone listening on YouTube and everyone, that will tune in later on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Overcast, elsewhere. Where every site that you can think of. That was a terrible intro. But anyway, we got lots and lots on the agenda today. We have special guest, a very, very special guest, Alex Faber, who is a writer at the State News, and he covers MSU hockey at State News. He covers the Red Wings at Octopus Thrower. Welcome, Alex. We had you on before. It's great to see you again. How are you?
I am pretty good, and I have a feeling that intro was just a little frazzled because you were so excited to talk sports today.
Oh my gosh, I just got my COVID booster, so I am thrown off. I got it at Breslin. It was really exciting, very, very interesting the way that they sort of almost misled you into the little atrium area, but it was good. A lot of people in army vests giving me a COVID shot. Very, very exciting. Very exciting stuff.
Sounds fantastic.
I know. I didn't really go over what we were going to get into, but we have lots and lots on the agenda today. So first off, obviously, I had to talk about, we got the Super Bowl coming up. Well, in a few weeks, but we have the championship rounds coming up next week. Matthew Stafford just did a thing which was very weird and very crazy as a Detroit sports person to notice. I'm very hesitated to say fan when it comes to the Lions, but it is what it is. But how was that for you? How was that reaction to, are you one of those people who were you hurt by that, or were you just pumped for Stafford?
So heading into the weekend, my opinion was I don't really care either way. Because on one hand, we have this guy who was, gave his all to the city of Detroit. It was a great guy, participated in a lot of charities. Same time, I am a Lions fan. If they lose, I get a draft pick. But man, in the moment, you just felt like Stafford's legacy was in the line. And in that moment where he threw it to Cooper Kupp, I just found myself rooting for him. Like I said, heading into that, I didn't have an allegiance. I wasn't pro-Stafford, anti-Stafford. But I'll be honest, I was cheering pretty hard for him when he just Hail Married it up to, not Hail Mary, but just that long pass down to Kupp to set up the game-winning field goal when he was running up doing the clock it. It reminded me of that game-winning drive against Dallas a few years back. That just, I don't know, man. It felt good in the moment, I guess.
Was that what everyone was sharing on Twitter?
Yep.
That thing that made that rounds where he was doing in the Lions uniform? Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things. It's very weird. And I'm gonna put that on the screen actually because it's worthy of our time. But so it was good. You saw it sort of reminded me of Stafford at his best when he was doing all of that. Again, this Hail Mary tackles him right at the 10, and I was surprised that he could do it. It's because, again, you give him a good team and he does what he does. The weird thing for me, and because again, it's Matthew Stafford, and for all the stuff that he's been given and all the stuff, and I remember, what is it, who's that one guy that does Colin Cowherd, who's very, very, if you've ever heard Colin Cowherd, I'm terrible at jokes. If you've ever heard him talk about Stafford, that he's not a fan, right?
Yeah.
And Colin Cowherd's it's true, right? He puts the facts, put the facts on the table, right? And I'm not, fan of him one way or the other, but he what he would say about like all the time, and he'd come up with all these things about how like if the game's on the line, you put the game in Stafford's hands, and Stafford doesn't come through. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. The interesting thing for me mostly was that I don't think that I learned anything new from this weekend watching him, in the sense of like, I know would I say that, and watching, and we'll get into it a little bit later on, but Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, like I would say, and I don't know how you feel, but I would say that they are better quarterbacks than Matthew Stafford is. I don't think that if you put Matthew Stafford on the Bills, maybe he has a harder time with what he's given. And I don't know, because the Detroit Lions have been the epitome of a failure for the last 60 plus years. So it's hard to say. But again, both things can be true where no, he's not he's never been good enough to lift the Lions from nothing and disaster. Like Josh Allen has with the Bills, or Joe Burrow has now with the Bengals. Like that's something that's insane that I never thought I would see. And I don't know, like just the Joe Burrow thing really rockets to me, because he's got like something about it. And I don't think that like Matthew Stafford ever did what Joe Burrow did this past weekend at all. And so again, I don't know, I just didn't learn some profound thing about how Matthew Stafford is this amazing dude. It's just same old.
What I kind of took away from the weekend, so there's always that question: is Matthew Stafford elite? It really depends how you define elite, right? Like you mentioned, I would consider the only two elite teams right now, or quarterbacks in the NFL right now, are Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Those guys are at just a different level than everyone else. And you could even say Joe Burrow, like you said, he did something that Stafford couldn't do. He went into a franchise that historically struggled and immediately snagged 2 playoff wins for him. The thing is, I think what Stafford did prove was that he can be a franchise guy. Does he have an obscene amount of talent around him? Yeah. Is that defensive line crazy? Does he have a great head coach? Does he have one of the best receiving corps in the NFL? Yes, but the argument with Stafford in Detroit was always, is he a franchise guy? And to me, a franchise quarterback is a guy who can string together a couple of games in the postseason against some of the best teams in the league and get a win. So I get what you're saying. I wouldn't go as far to say he's one of the best in the league now, but he's certainly a franchise quarterback. I guess that was kind of cemented in my mind for me.
Interesting. Because again, and we haven't played the Orlovsky comments, and that's and I've always agreed with Dan Orlovsky in the sense of I felt bad for him when he was here, because I was so about to pin this on Detroit and the ownership and how just historically bad. I mean, you're talking about the worst sports franchise in the history of sports. I could not name another one. Just off the top of my head, there are some that come to mind, like Arizona Coyotes. What the fuck is that? But there's very few that sort of sink to that level, and I guess in football, it's one of those things where it's Arizona's almost doomed, whereas Detroit, could have succeeded on multiple occasions. They had chances to succeed. The NFL out here helping them out, and I mean, you could say the same thing about the NHL to Arizona and vice versa and stuff like that. And how, and there's bad teams everywhere, but, so I've always felt bad for him. I was, out here on Matthew Stafford's pity party when he was here, this dude, just is doing everything for Detroit and nobody gives a shit about him. But yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. If you really could consider those elite guys, because I did that, what was it? There was this ESPN article about how now everything's out on the table with these young quarterbacks. You got Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, that was a good game. I wanted to get into the overtime rules in just a moment. Dan Orlovsky said this on ESPN.
I was not going to come on television today and be normal. So this jacket is coming off. This jacket is coming off. I was at an 80s themed party on Saturday night, right? And I saw this jacket, right? This is from my brother-in-law. Right when he wore it, I said, yo, Burrow wins, Stafford wins, I'm putting it on. Allie, we are not making bump timing here. Oh, this is the all-time I told you so moment. This is a career-defining and legacy-changing throw from Matthew Stafford. So all you writers in Detroit that for years, this is Maverick from Top Gun. All you writers in Detroit that for years told me your guy's not good enough, you were wrong. And all the fans in Detroit, and I know I love a lot of you guys that told me Matthew Stafford stunk, you were wrong. And all those people who send me stuff on the internet, memes saying all your guy does is pad stats, you were wrong. For years, I have told, and a small group of people have told everybody, Matthew Stafford is a great player. And you say, well, he doesn't win games. He played in Detroit. He's never been to the playoffs and won a game. He played in Detroit. This was the moment that Matthew Stafford had to prove everybody wrong. And I said this a couple months ago. There is not a human being that plays in the NFL that when the game is on the line, and it is nut-cutting time in the fourth quarter, that I want the ball more than Matthew Stafford.
So I just have one question for you. Do you agree with that premise that, because I mean, obviously, like the first guy that comes to mind, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. Would you not put Tom Brady in that situation?
Yeah, so Orlovsky did the Orlovsky thing. He took a premise that was correct. I think he was correct in his assessment that was a career-defining throw. But he did the Orlovsky thing and made it a bit goofy and took it way too far. Stafford does have some, I believe it is the most game-winning drive since he's been in the league, but he was with a terrible team. That doesn't shock me. I just think he took it a bit too far. I would rather have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. I would rather have both of them. I wouldn't mind Tom Brady in that situation. To me, it's another Orlovsky comment. He just says some cheerleady stuff sometimes. He gets weird about his comments.
Some bonkers stuff. I mean, that's probably why he's on ESPN, to be honest. You say some shit that gets attention, and there you are. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you are right. You are correct in saying that he was a franchise guy for Detroit. Detroit failed him. Is he elite? He could prove that. Do you have any interest in seeing Stafford winning a Super Bowl? Or do you think this is it? This is done. He should just quit so Detroit can get that draft pick?
At this point, it doesn't matter. The draft doesn't matter to me. I'm cheering for him to get a chip. I know some Detroit guys are going to be mad at me because there was those, I was one of the guys who was cheering for Verlander too when he got the World Series. At the end of the day, it's just sports, and my allegiance isn't just to the Lions. It's also the people who kind of come through that organization. And Stafford was a guy who gave his heart to Detroit. He was a fun guy. So at this point, that draft capital is not going to change significantly enough for me to cheer against him. So
plus,
I'm just going to say
Detroit is set up. Detroit is set up. They are set up. What is it? Where I can't remember where it was. God forgive me. But there was this one piece that came out that was saying how Detroit has the best looking rebuild moving forward. So they got nothing to worry about with the draft picks that they have coming up, with the fact that normally NFL rebuilds can take anywhere from 2 to 3 years. And so, and we're in year 1 and going into year 2 now. And so, if Detroit did this thing right, which, we know the history there, then, they could have some, I don't know. I think that Detroit will make the playoffs in 2 years. The only thing, and this is for another conversation, I've always been a little skeptical, and I still am, of Dan Campbell. A little bit, still a little skeptical. Rookie head coach, don't know. Didn't give me a good first impression. But we got work to do there. So real quick, I want to transition into the NFL and overtime. Now, first question I have for you, all right? Because I just want to outline for the viewers, for the people, real quick. NFL overtime is you got a coin toss, right? And what? They start from, is it a kickoff or something like that? It's a kickoff, right? Yeah. And they're just like normal. And the first one, if you score a field goal, the other team now has to match your field goal or get a touchdown and they win. Or if you score a touchdown, it's sudden death. So sudden death, touchdown, you win the game. And so Buffalo and Kansas City played that divisional game in the AFC. And Kansas City Patrick Mahomes won the coin toss. That was a wild game, by the way. But Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs win the coin toss. They drive right down the field. They win the game. Boom, game over. In college, it's a little different where they got what? They start from the 25-yard line on the opposite end, right? And then from that point on, you have now to get a what is it? Like it's best score wins. But after the second overtime, like I think it's after the second score, they have to get a 2-point conversion.
2-point attempts. Then it goes to 2-point attempts.
And then it's just 2-point shootout.
Yep.
So and that's what we got when we got a 9 overtime game in the Penn State Illinois game, which was god awful. But so I've heard a couple suggestions. Okay, the first one to replace the NFL system, because nobody likes the NFL. Nobody liked the old system when the old system was like field goal done. Nobody liked that system, but they changed it now where it's a touchdown, and nobody likes this new system. Well, if they change it, they could do a couple things. They could, A, go for a full period, so just do another full 15 minutes, all right? That could cause some issues. I don't know, like if people are worried about another tie after that, like sometimes you get in baseball, but 15 minutes is a lot of time. Or you could just do college rules, but it's from the 50 instead of the 25. Is there one you like better, or what do you think they should do?
So I want to address the Bills Chiefs game first. That spurred so many comments on Twitter, and I agree with almost all of them. The one thing I want to make sure we don't do is taint the victory for the Chiefs, because at the end of the day, the Bills let the Chiefs march down in 13 seconds and score the tying goal to send it to overtime. So I think people who are trying to use that to kind of cloud the victory for the Chiefs, don't do that. It was a fantastic game. But at the same time, man, I really wanted to see Josh Allen get the ball in overtime. I really did. So I think the NFL really does need to change it. I don't have a perfect system in mind, because with just another period, you get into the trouble of exhaustion. Because what if it's like baseball, like you said, or hockey or basketball, where you have to go to another overtime because you're still tied. That starts to get bad for player safety. So that kind of leads me to the latter option you said. Start from the 50 college rules. Something like that would just make so much sense to me, but make them go for 2 points right away. Something to make it quicker. Just something where defense and offense play a role. Because with how gassed the Bills' defense was after that final drive, you knew they were going to give up the touchdown. As soon as that happened, you're like, okay, that's the game right there. So I'd like to see an overtime that gets the ball in both players' hands, but also kind of keeps in mind player safety. So I think the latter option you said is my preferred, I guess.
Yeah, and like, because I'm trying to think too, like, what if we thought outside the box? And this might come off as stupid because I am literally thinking off the top of my head, but the NHL does something where they do 3-on-3. Do you think the NFL could do something where it's like I don't want to say like, that many people, but like 6-on-6?
So the NHL doesn't do that in the playoffs. They stick with the 5-on-5.
Oh, do
so
they?
I think
Okay.
the NFL would probably like elect to stick with the amount
Just
of players
the 11,
on the team,
yeah.
because then you get into the kind of like the sanctity of the game, people.
Right,
if that makes sense.
right. right?
Like with when the shootout was introduced in hockey, that was a big controversy because it kind of ruined the sanctity of the game. That's another thing that's not
because they don't do that in the playoffs, right? Like they
No.
don't do shootouts; they just do continuous OT.
Yep,
So
that's where you get Yzerman's slap shot to win in double overtime against St. Louis. That's where you get moments like that.
because obviously, like, the reason why that they started to introduce that in hockey and to begin with was just because it's easier to score when there are when there are 6 players on the ice versus 10. You know,
Right.
I guess the game would almost like end quicker in theory. You know, it changes the dilemma of the game, and it's easier to set up a breakaway. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting because I always, what was that game where, was it New Orleans? Didn't they win some game years ago where that made them change it? Because it used to be just a field goal for NFL OT, right?
I honestly can't remember. I
just remember going to like middle school and people were pissed about it. You know, I wake up and I'm like, I don't know what happened. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting because that full period thing, like, I would be on board if football wasn't such a like physical sport already. You know, like, right. You got players and they're already trying to extend the season by a couple weeks. Like, they want to add another game, and I don't think the first game needed to be added. And so, like, the last thing we need to be doing is adding more periods. But yeah, like, college rules. It was actually Jim Costa, who is like some new radio voice. Yeah. At 97.1 in Detroit, he actually was the one that suggested both of those, because I've heard of the extra period thing. The college rules thing I've talked about before, but never really considered it being from the 50, just because I was like, the thing I was most worried about was the 25. I'm like, because college is a little bit different, you know. Right. Alex, I want to transition real quick into some Big Ten football. All right. Now, me and you both big into Michigan State, right? So Michigan State all the way. So obviously Michigan State had a great season, and projections mean nothing, especially this early, right? We all know how much projections mean. I mean, projections were the same reason why, like, you had these pundits go on TV and be like, Michigan's not going to win more than 6 games. And I'm like, the fuck are you smoking? Or like the people who had Michigan State at, well, that was more realistic, but it was like 4.5, I think, was their
wins at Vegas. Yeah.
That's crazy to me. But, so we got some Big Ten projections on 24/7 Sports. All right. Very interesting stuff. By Brad Crawford, this week. Very interesting stuff. So what I just want to highlight some of these, okay, real quick. And again, I don't know, because I want to get into my own Michigan State projections, and this is just based, again, like, there are a few factors at play. Like, it assumes that Jim Harbaugh stays. It assumes that everything stays the same right now with current recruiting projections, etc. The biggest thing that stood out to me was not Michigan State, was not Michigan, was not like any other team except for Northwestern, actually. It has Northwestern going 0-9 in the Big Ten. Do you think that that's realistic at all?
So here's the thing about Northwestern. I was actually thinking about that, and when I was making my own rankings kind of in my head, I did project Northwestern as last. But if you look at Pat Fitzgerald as a program, he kind of has this thing where every other year they seem to kind of reload. Now this year, I'm doing what I can. I'm doubting him, and that's where Pat's at his best. He usually gets his Northwestern teams up and ready when they're doubted, but I just don't see a lot of talent in that Northwestern squad. I don't think they showed any really flashes of anything promising this year. It was a pretty rough season, I guess, for the Wildcats. But 0-9 seems a little aggressive in the West. I feel like the West is you can snag
they're also not that great.
Right. So that the Northwestern one, that one was a bit much for me, I think.
So in like again, like because again, it's so hard. It's just so hard to imagine any team going 0-9 in the Big Ten West,
especially in the West.
Exactly right. Like if you told me that Maryland or Rutgers was gonna go 0-9, I'd be like, yeah, no big. That's probably accurate. That's Rutgers with an over under of like 1. Minnesota's was interesting too. What do they got? Like a 5-4 sort of even. And I've always been sort of a like Tanner Morgan believer, like PJ Fleck sort of guy. It has Minnesota winning Big Ten games at Penn State and at Illinois, and losing against Michigan State. Like I don't know. I've always been a big fan of Minnesota. Just kind of one of those teams that you feel bad for, like every once in a while, like they're really hard to hate.
Right.
Wisconsin as well. Do you think that any of these teams, like Wisconsin's is the easiest to predict, in my opinion. Do you think that any of these teams like stand out from the West? Like, do you think that there's every year it seems like there's another one that goes to the Big Ten title game? Who do you think it's going to be?
There are 2 teams I actually kind of have in mind in the West. So Wisconsin is one. I think didn't the projection have them at 8-4?
Yeah, and every single win is it. Well, not every win I should say, but every home game is a win.
Okay, I just think I know Graham Mertz had a horrible season last year, but he kind of improved it near the end. They had a lot of momentum in the latter half of the season. I could see them. It's the boring prediction. I could see them kind of just taking the West, but I think the fun prediction, the bold one, I could see Nebraska taking a step forward next year.
Interesting.
They were in every single game last year. Almost every single game. They were within a touchdown. They were right there to win it. They almost beat the Big Ten champ, Michigan Wolverines. They Michigan State. There was just so many. Ohio State.
Every game was close. They just didn't have that like it factor to get them over the hump. Right. Yeah, and
Nebraska's just a weird team. Just keep an eye on them. I'm not bold on that one, but just kind of. I'm not sold, but
the interesting thing about Wisconsin too is it's such a weird thing, because like we talk a lot about like in college basketball, we talk a lot about like home field advantage or home court advantage, right? In football, like it's hard to go into Ann Arbor and win a game, right? Like just because there's 110,000 people there, right? Like it's hard to go into East Lansing even and win a game if Michigan State is a good team, right? Like depending on the year, with Michigan State. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot harder to go into Ann Arbor than it is to go into Spartan Stadium just because you're missing 40,000 people. Wisconsin's just one of those places, though, in football that it's very hard to win at. And, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I will hold this, I claim this forever, about that when me calling the Alabama lost this year at Texas A&M. That game was at Kyle Field, and I'm like, listen, Alabama's going to lose a game. It's not going to be a home game. It's going to be a road game. They're going to lose a game. And I wasn't sure which one it was, but I picked a random one. It was a random road game. But again, it's a lot harder to win on the road than it is at home. And so, like, Wisconsin's just one of those teams. Like, look at this. This is the end. Again, these are just projections, okay? So these could be nothing. But you got the only road game that 24/7 has Wisconsin winning is at Northwestern. That's it. And for all we know, Northwestern could win that game. So it's like a dead split, And like, because people kept saying that Michigan was an underdog to Wisconsin last year, when they played that game, and I'm like, really? Like, really, And there were a couple games that I actually ended up betting money on that Wisconsin was favored in. I think it was specifically the Iowa game where I took Wisconsin. It was the only game I bet money on the whole season, but. Wisconsin was an underdog in that, or no, they were favored to Iowa, and I was like, really? What the why? And I thought this was easy money. Iowa blew the game straight up, just nothing. I remember that
because I was confused by the spread too because it was like 2.5 or something. It may have even been longer, but I was like, those odds are weird for a top 25 Iowa.
And Wisconsin's just a weird team where, like, any home game could be theirs. Any home game. Like, it doesn't matter how good their but even then, this year, they got a cupcake schedule. Like, these are and again, like, the East teams they play what? Maryland, Ohio State, and Michigan State. So, I guess it's actually not that much of a cupcake. They play Michigan State and Ohio State on the road. So that kind of sucks. And they play Iowa on the road. All their home games are easy. Piece of cake. But
with the Big Ten West, too, it more than almost any other conference or more than almost any other division in the nation, home and road matters so much there. Like you said, because there's not a big margin between a Minnesota and a Wisconsin.
Nope.
Where they are right now. So where they play really plays into what's going to happen at the end of the season. That's why you get teams like Northwestern winning the Big Ten West every once in a while. They get those good draws at home. It's just kind of how it goes, I guess.
So I want to know where you think or where you have Michigan State ending up.
Okay, so this one, you mentioned before, we're Michigan State guys. We're in those neck of the woods, so I might get a little hate here, but I think we see some growing pains next year. Now, in terms of the program, I think the program will continue to trend up. I don't think it'll hurt recruiting at all. But I think you're looking at a 9-3 or 8-4 season, mostly because I think the offense regresses a bit. Without Kenneth Walker, I think this offense kind of changes a bit, and Peyton Thorne is going to be forced to develop quickly. He's got a year under his belt. He had flashes where he was really good. But in games where K9 was banged up or hurt, things looked a little different. He looked like he had a little trouble. The Ohio State one comes to mind. I know the Buckeyes are one of the best teams in the nation consistently, but he put up a crappy performance there. Jaden Reed's coming back. I'm not too worried about the receiving core. Malik Carr's coming back. So, like, I think they're weapons, but without K9, I want to see how Jay Johnson does in terms of play calling. Now, where I could be proven completely wrong is the defensive side of the ball. Just because they got so many nice, they got that linebacker out of UNLV. They got a couple of nice big guys recruiting and in the portal. So if their defense takes a step forward and their offense takes a little step back, they could still be a 10-win team. I just think this season we are riding so high. I think it comes a little. I think things get a little more realistic next year. That's just my opinion, I guess.
Well, and it was almost sort of a euphoria this year too, right? And I feel like a lot of people are on that bus where they're thinking like that Michigan State is not, like, it's not realistic, especially this early in the rebuild, to assume that and they could do anything, right? Like with the way that Mel Tucker is utilizing the transfer portal, anything could happen. I mean, realistically speaking, right? Like Kenneth Walker's the only reason, and that transfer portal's the only reason that Kenneth Walker was brought here, and Kenneth Walker, by virtue, is the only reason why Michigan State went 11-2. I mean, there's a difference between an 11-2 team and a team that goes 7-5. I mean, 7-6, because with the extra bowl game, they could have won that. But right, like, you're talking about a team that was 500 before the addition of one player. And I think you're right in saying, too, that Michigan State is going to have to lean on Peyton Thorne. I think really what worried me is that we didn't see a lot from him against Pittsburgh, right? Like he wasn't great until the fourth quarter. Until
the final 10 minutes.
Right. And that's one of those things that separates those great QBs from the QBs that are average, because every beat writer that I see, right, like Colton Pouncey, love his coverage, right? He did this whole thing on Peyton Thorne. Graham Couch is reveled in Peyton Thorne, loves the dude, right? Like we were talking to this was off the air, but we were talking to the co-site expert at Octopus Thrower, where you write. And Nate Brown was talking to me, and it was crazy conversation. Loved it. But we were talking about Peyton Thorne and how he knows Peyton Thorne's dad, because Peyton Thorne's dad was a D3 college coach. And this, I think, was back when he was at some high school or something or whatever. But he was talking to Peyton Thorne's dad when Peyton Thorne was a kid running around in the field. And so Peyton Thorne has like the smarts to get where he needs to go, right? But like like, why is it that you see players who were so good in college, like Kellen Moore? Let's bring up Kellen Moore, right? Like, the dude's now an offensive coordinator for Dallas or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was never that execution to the next level. Like, I need to see that jump right now, you know, because, like, that's kind of, again, what separates you from being great and stuff like that. So it worries me that he didn't do well until the end. And did he fix was he aware and acknowledge the problem in the moment? That's something that not a lot of guys can do. Like, yeah, he did that and he corrected it, he fixed it, but I need to see the prep. I need to see the you need to do that. You just need to be there. And I think that Peyton Thorne could be the difference between, again, like an 8-4 and a 10-2. So
yeah, he's going to be what Michigan State rides or dies on.
Exactly.
If he ends up having a fantastic season and those flashes he illustrated throughout the entire season, he had flashes of excellence. If he can make that more consistent, this team definitely can be a 10, maybe even 11 win team. But for now, I don't know. It's hard to put my chips all in, I guess. I'll just say that.
Yeah, and especially, you know, based alone on Michigan State's schedule. Like, I think that 3 easy losses right off the bat: Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, right off the bat. I would move Michigan and Penn State into sort of in the middle territory. I was going to say
Penn State and Ohio State, or Penn State and Michigan are definitely beatable. I mean, on the road, Michigan's going to be tough, I guess, but Penn State also. It would,
and again, it would depend for me, right? Because, like, I thought the extension that Franklin was given, I thought that was questionable just because we know who James Franklin is. But he also has the track record, so maybe Penn State believes in him more than I do. Like, I would not have given James Franklin 10 years and $75 million, right? But I would have given him an extension of any amount. Like, I would have given him two sticks and a tadpole. I would have given him anything, you know, just because, like, I don't know that Michigan and Penn State are kind of in that same spot where they're like, if I get rid of my coach, then who do I get after, you know? And so, like, I don't think that Penn State should have fired him because he did get them to, like, 4 straight, like, New Year's Six Bowls, but Penn State should have beaten Michigan State this year. So it's kind of a do you beat yourself sort of thing. And Michigan's kind of the same way, right? Like if I'm a Michigan fan, and I've talked about this with Griff too, who is a Michigan fan. Like, if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm more upset that after I beat Ohio State, I'm more upset that I'm not beating my in-state rival. Like, I'm not really as upset. Like, you could put Ohio State on the back burner for now, but Michigan is Michigan State's like priority number 1 for them. And so I think that, like, it's one of those things, like, is that enough to do it? So that's kind of why, I guess, my thinking with, like, why I don't see Michigan State winning for a 3rd year in a row. Like, I just don't think that Michigan can afford that. You know what I mean? Like, that would be DEFCON 1 for Michigan. No reason.
Yeah, it's on the road. It'll be a tough one for sure, but I don't know. Tucker 2-0 against Harbaugh. I like that propaganda.
Yeah.
And I think Harbaugh stays, but there have been reports to the Raiders, obviously. And then he lost his defensive coordinator today. I thought that was interesting.
I did.
That was kind of fascinating. So it's just like you were mentioning earlier. It's just so far out. It's so hard to predict at this point. This far out, we just have so much road or so much track left to go, I guess.
Right. Well, and to Harbaugh's credit too, and I'll give him credit. Like, I think that, and I've always said this, I think that he is much better as an NFL coach than he is as a college coach. You know, I mean, it's just he seems more comfortable with it, and just you've seen him again with what he did with the 49ers compared to what he did with, like, the Cardinals in Michigan, and you know, the Cardinal, sorry. But, you know, my bad. Stanford, sorry. But, you know, it's just, again, like, I think that if he went to the Bears or if he went to the Raiders, like, I think that would be a better fit than where he is now. I think there would be less pressure on him, and I don't know, maybe he succeeds and stays someplace for a while. Yeah, it's, again, we got a long way to go. A long way to go. But I did want to mention one thing real quick, because Griff and I have talked about Big Ten realignment for a while, okay? And nobody was a fan of the legends and leaders, right, when they tried to realign that garbage. Would you be open to no divisions? No divisions, right? Because think about it. And I'm going to persuade you right off the bat, all right? Yeah. So divisions exist, right, for not necessarily for like standing-wise. Like, it's not to compete, right? Like, nobody gives a shit if, like, who plays in the finals, I guess, in college. It's for competitiveness, isn't it? Because, like, you don't want the same teams playing every year. You know, or, well, you do with the nature of college and rivalries and stuff like that. But what if there was a system, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. There was an article in The Athletic. I don't know if you saw this today. It was just today. But the Big Ten currently has a 9-game conference schedule that includes 3 cross-division games, right? So, like, Michigan State, for example, played Northwestern. Who else did they play? Northwestern. Did they play Minnesota? No.
Purdue.
Purdue and Nebraska, right?
Yep.
Purdue and Nebraska. Yep. Those were their 3 cross. And then the rest of them, they just play the East. The Big Ten has discussed dropping to 8 games in 2023 so they can create matchups with the Pac-12 and the ACC, which they've created sort of, they're framing it as the alliance. You know, we got
the
a
alliance
name
against the SEC.
Right, exactly. So what the interesting part though is that now there are discussions about the Big Ten ending divisional play. So basically in this situation, what you would have is every school would play 3 annual opponents, okay? Like, just that is normal, right? So for Michigan State, for example, I would imagine that it would be Penn State, Michigan, and Indiana. I would imagine those would be, the third one you could kind of give or take, but I'm pretty sure that Indiana has more history there. Anyway, so you'd have three opponents every year, but then you'd cycle through the rest of them, the other 10, every other year. So like you'd play 2 years on, 2 years off. So every 2 years you'd switch opponents. I guess we could add some consistency. So would you be open to that? Would that be better? Would that not be better than our current system and take the top 2 from the standings and just have them play in the finals?
Yeah, absolutely. The Big Ten West is a joke. Let's all be real with ourselves. It's put MSU, put Penn State, put Michigan, put Ohio State. Those 4 teams consistently would win that. Wisconsin would give them a run for their money every once in a while. But, let's be real. The East is significantly better, and it's such a disproportionate amount of talent just in one area. And I like the idea of no divisions, because once you try and realign things, you risk something happening down the line where, let's say, Minnesota becomes a powerhouse, and then Michigan State fades. So then there's more imbalance. Just make it no divisions. That's all you got to do. No divisions. Build in those games against rivals, like Michigan State would be Penn State, Indiana, and Michigan, and probably Ohio State's not technically a rival. But if we're doing just 3 games, those are 3 technically MSU's rivals. So build in those games that are consistent, have them cycle through the rest, and then we have more parity in the conference. It's just I don't know. To me, that's how you do it, and it should be that way right now.
Yeah. Because you're right. It's not competitive, and like would you have wanted to see? I would have watched any game pitting Michigan against any other Big East or Big Ten East team than I would have seen them against Iowa.
Absolutely.
That was just garbage. That was terrible.
Can you imagine Michigan and Ohio State in a Big Ten title game?
That would have been great. That would have sucked. That would have and. So the interesting thing, though, too, is that now fans bring up, because and this goes into the tradition with the Michigan whole thing. And I know that both of us are kind of MSU guys, right? But like people get stuck on this thing that where the last game of the regular season must be the end all be all, right? Like, and I hate this, and I think that everyone needs to get away from it, right? Because like you and this year was a perfect example, okay? So Georgia and Alabama play each other in the SEC title game. All right, they don't play at all. They're not in the same division. They don't play at all during the regular season. But they go into the SEC title game, and Alabama wins. But Georgia, damn good team, right? We know that they're a damn good team. They compete with every other team. They could beat any other team. All right, you put them in the college football playoff. They get to the finals. They play Alabama again. Who comes out on top? It's Georgia. You play that game 10 times. Alabama wins 5, Georgia wins 5. Like, that's just how even it looked, right? Like, it was just based on the context of everything. But you have these people, especially people who are just so distraught and ingrained with Michigan's history. You have a lot of people who are very much caught on the idea that, like, if we somehow got rid of that system. Say there's a situation down the line where like Michigan and Ohio State, which tends to be the case because they're both insanely historic programs who have in just so much recruiting power. And you're going to have a system where Michigan wins the Big Ten title game, but Ohio State ends up Michigan wins the regular season matchup, but Ohio State wins the Big Ten. And like that almost to them makes the regular season irrelevant, you know? And I'm like, yeah, but no. Like, you know, like
I would argue that bowl season is the playoffs, and especially when it expands, because it will expand, has already made the regular season more relevant. It just brings more meaning to a game. I mean, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, like, that's a possible Big 12 matchup, and their fans wouldn't complain about that. That would be stellar to view. I have heard that argument, but I just think the way college football is heading, traditions are.
Has it mattered? Has it ever mattered anyway? You know, like you got games in December that I'm like watching, and I'm like, what if we turned half those bowl games into playoffs? You know, like what if we turned those games from exhibition matchups to something? You know, like watching a bowl game is like hitting play now on Madden. Like I'm not interested in doing that, you know?
Yeah, especially in bowls like the Cheez-It Bowl and those. It's gotten a bit ridiculous. I do like bowl season. I'm definitely pro lots of bowls, but I mean, in terms of a traditionalist argument, I just think that bowls have already done away with the regular season more than any other change to anything could do.
Yeah, and right, and again, like you mentioned, the things changing. You got NIL coming in here, so like
yeah.
All right, Alex. So we got something that we do here at Take This every week. All right. So we have big. It's called Who You Got. Who you got? Let me see if do I have a graphic on screen? Let me do that. I'm doing it all live. Here we go. There you go. Who you got? Right up on the screen. All right. Let's play a song. Never mind. Let's not play a song. Let's just keep it going. Anyway, we got Who You Got. All right. So we got to pick the matchups from the NFL happening this season. Or this weekend, I should say. Weekend. So again, this past weekend we had what? Kansas City and the Bills. Kansas City went ahead and won. It was a big thing. I want to let everyone know off the top of the bat though. I did ask Griff who he has in the in the finals, and it's he picked the obvious answers, but I'm behind him, so I got to catch up. So I'm picking opposite him for one. So the first game we have here is the NFC Championship game between the 49ers and the Rams. Alex, who you got?
So the 49ers are arguably the hottest team in football right now. After a rough start to the year because of injuries and all that sorts, they are really just kind of propelling their way to a fantastic postseason run. Here's the thing. What we've seen from this playoff so far, otherwise than Rodgers' early departure, is that quarterback play matters. Quarterback play matters a lot. And I just saw the 49ers kind of use Deebo Samuel and some good defense to win in Lambeau. And then I just saw Stafford throw some dimes and just kind of take over a game and win it. I actually think the Rams take care of business in SoFi. I think the Rams get this done and the Rams make the Super Bowl. I think they get the W here.
That is, I think I'm honestly on the, whoops, I'm making you bigger. I think I'm on the same page here, because my issue has always been that, like, I didn't believe in the 49ers to begin with, and maybe they proved me wrong. Who knows, right? But because I have not picked the 49ers to win a single game, and here they are in the NFC title. But still, it's Stafford. Again, like if you would have put the Buccaneers here, I got the Bucs. If you put the Rams here, I got the Rams. If you put the Bills here, obviously you wouldn't, but if you put the Bills here, I got the anyone could beat the 49ers. The Cowboys could I guess unless it's the playoffs, never mind. So, but yeah, it's tough to pick. It would be ballsy. It would be bold, very bold to pick to end up picking the 49ers here. So I got to pick the Rams.
What'd Griff go with?
Griff went with the Rams, obviously.
Nice.
It's tough, and it kind of leads into my next next ordeal here, because what do we got? We got the Bengals and we have the Chiefs. Now, again, Griff and I are like neck and neck, and it sucks too because we were keeping track, and I for the longest time was in the lead. I don't think that I have ever given up the lead, but especially with the pick, the big pick where I picked Alabama to win that game. I picked Texas A&M to beat Alabama, I should say. And there was another big pick that got me like a lot of points. I can't remember. Anyway, I just was making just bold pick after bold pick. But that's why I don't bet money on these things, because I end up just taking the underdog like every time, and the underdog only works out a certain amount of times. But this time we got the Bengals and the Chiefs. So I had to pick against Griff for this one. So who do you got?
So last week I predicted the Titans to beat the Bengals, because my thought process was, with that offensive line, the Bengals could not get anything done. Burrow would be ran around the field, mistakes would be made, and eventually Titans would come up on top. What I failed to realize was that Ryan Tannehill is a terrible quarterback. This week, he's going to be this week Joe Burrow has to duel against Patrick Mahomes. I think this roster is the weakest current in the playoffs remaining. I love Joe Burrow, I love Jamar Chase, but in terms of makeup of the team, I think it's the worst that's left. Kansas City is hot right now. They're riding off a crazy victory at home. I'll take the Chiefs by a lot here, actually. I think the Chiefs, they're going to take care of business easily.
So, yeah. I just realized I was muted. Well, again, like I would love to have the privilege to pick the Chiefs. I would love to have that, but I don't. Let's move me. How do I can't pick things up with this stupid thing. Anyway, producing your own show that you're hosting, not easy. Not easy to do. But anyway, so I got to pick the Bengals. All right. Now here's one reason only. Joe motherfucking Burrow. Dude is wild. We love him. Great guy. 10 out of 10. Do I think this is going to be one of the greatest upsets in NFL history? I think that Joe Burrow's just the guy. And I'm loving the Cincinnati vibes, too, because I didn't realize, Cincinnati before last weekend had not won a playoff game since 1991. And I don't think it stops here. I think that Joe Burrow's going to pass it on. Joe Burrow to the Super Bowl. That is where I am right now, and I just gotta win. So I just gotta win, because if I pick the Chiefs to win this game, this is kind of where it gets finicky. But if I were to pick the Chiefs, I would be giving myself the L right here, because I gotta get two more correct.
You gotta ride and die on Joey B there. I don't blame you.
So yeah, it's a tough season, but it's that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But thanks, Alex. That was Who You Got. Anyway, so friends and family, we have a lot more not really a lot more to talk about, but we got Michigan State hockey. Lots to talk about. Michigan State is having a great an okay season. We are here to talk about it with Clay Snowden in just a moment. But before we get to that, we're going to take a quick break. It's going to be very exciting, very, very actually thrilling, to be honest. But we're going to take a quick break, and after that, we will see you in just a moment.
I grew up in a place where they told you what to chase, told you how to run the race, every move was on the page. But I didn't like their way, had to fight and misbehave, had to find a way to change, had to leave to find my way. Caught up in a daydream, I beat my mind up there almost daily. It's how I pass time, no opinions safely. It's how I understand what I want in this place, see. Cause everybody wanna tell you bad things, what could go wrong, what fame brings. But success is a finicky thing, and if you ain't sure, no, it'll never be. I don't wanna let myself down, myself down. I don't wanna let myself down, myself down. I don't have to plan it, I can go change my fate. You won't understand it, all alone, that's okay. People I can't stand them, they don't want me to change, keep me where I'm standing. And I don't wanna be where I am, and I want something more, take a chance. It could be possibly my last dance, my last dance. And I don't wanna let myself down, myself.
I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gone live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad, I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad, doing no cap. Only God wants, so you better go live it up. Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Baby, I'm bad, baby, I'm bad.
I just wanna stay bad, stay mad. Chip on my shoulder cause they treat me like an outcast. I ain't gonna take that, stay back. I'll be swinging hard till the hits come in all caps. I ain't gonna lay back, pray that someone's gonna help me. Ain't nobody like that. I ain't gonna wait, that's all fact. Give me one shot and I'll never get the throne back. I'm sick of being cautious. I'ma go cause something, can't stop this. I'ma steal everybody's lane, call it shoplift. Sick of hearing everyone complain when they thoughtless. Taste the pain, it's like candy canes. It makes me go change into a better frame, into a better name. Society's insane, we all live for fame, yeah. Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gon' live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad, I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad, do it no cap. Only God wants you, better go live it up. Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Baby, I'm bad, baby, I'm bad. I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gon' live it up.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Take This. This is a podcast that I am hosting just very poorly today. Very interesting stuff. Just to, just discuss. Anyway, we got to talk about MSU hockey. It's very weird that Clay is still in the waiting room. So I'm gonna bring him into here he is. There he is. There he is. My goodness. What a time. What's up, Clay? How are you? I can hear you. I can hear you all right.
Okay, well, I'm sitting here with my Blackhawks.
Oh no! Why? What are you doing? Come on!
The Blackhawks are currently up 4-0 at the end of the first period against your Detroit Red Wings. So I decided to throw this bad boy on.
No, delete. No, you can't do that to me.
Steals Alex to brink it from you. You know what? That's what I hope. I hope your franchise is cursed.
That was unsportsmanlike conduct. That's what that was. That was terrible.
Hey, I was sitting here and I was listening to everything that you all were saying before, and I was just like catching myself wanting to jump in on like all of this stuff. I was so gung ho, and I'm a big Buffalo Bills fan, so I am hurting quite a bit.
Dude, that sucks.
The amount of emotions I experienced during that game was so unhealthy. I honestly
I have no allegiance to either team, and the amount of emotions Dude, I was sitting out here. I was like, I wonder. And this doesn't happen very often, but I was like, I wonder what the what's it called? The you know how you can go to ESPN and it'll show you like the chance that every team had to win. Like, because the only sport that I ever usually give a shit about that in is baseball, because it changes all the goddamn time. Yeah. Every time it's just something different, right? Because you could make a game from 4-4 to like 8-4 in like a matter of moments. But yeah, that was like, Bills need to be resuscitated after that. That was rough.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I just want to throw in a little bit about a few different topics.
Yeah,
a few takes of mine, not takes, just stances, I guess. Michigan State football drops a little bit this year, a little bit of a dip in production, losing Walker. I think they're going to take a slight step back, slingshot forward 2023. Overtime rules, complete trash. Imagine going into a job interview and they call you back and say, we're going to have another job interview. It's between you and somebody else. The other person goes first, and then they come out and say, go home. You don't even get your shot.
I feel like that's how it happens sometimes.
The game was not decided because of the overtime. The Bills did not lose because of overtime rules. They lost because of coaching and not squibbing with 13 seconds left, or even if they did squib.
That was silly.
Defense.
Just the fact that they even touched that back.
The last thing I kind of wanted to touch on was the conference restructure. I say screw all of it. Screw all of the conferences. Power 5 plays Power 5. You could literally draw names out of a hat, 12 games, and just play Power 5. I don't care. How cool would it be to see Arizona State play Mississippi State on a random Saturday instead of New Mexico playing Alabama or something like that?
Yeah.
Power 5 plays Power 5. Get rid of all conferences. It will never happen, but it would be surely, very entertaining. That's all I got. Sorry to take up an extra 3 or 4 minutes there.
I'm hoping the Super Conference kind of allows that to happen a bit, like where they start like Pac-12 teams and Big 12. That would be so fun. If like you were saying, imagine MSU just going to like Stanford or just going to Oregon State. That would be so fun. Just consistently having those fun games. Are you kidding me? It's free money too. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I can just think of waking up on a Saturday morning instead of some trash noon game on SEC Network. We're looking at Arkansas versus Illinois. Like, it's just weird. It doesn't happen much. Like, we actually get to see some talents up against each other. I don't know. I think it would be cool.
Right, and I think too, that's what happened with like college basketball, right? Well, they put all their chips into like March Madness, right? But but we've always had those games where it's like, like Michigan State at the beginning of the year played like Kansas, and I thought that was cool. Michigan State's kind of a power, right? And and there are teams in Division I football that do the same thing, not Alabama so much so because there's a lot of stuff with that.
The SEC does not play.
No, I was just gonna say that was a bad example. Oregon is a better example, or like Ohio State is a better example. Like Ohio State is constantly out here with their non-conference games. Like one of them matters, just one. At least one of them. You got teams like Michigan out here with the next 3 years of non-conference games. They're out here playing not a ton of FCS schools, but not Power 5.
MAC.
That's
like
what
they
you
got
have to
MAC
do.
teams.
If you're a program that wants to prove yourself or take yourself to the next level, the first step is to beat teams that people care about. What did Cincinnati do? They scheduled Notre Dame, Indiana. Now I know Indiana was down, but they
Indiana
said,
wasn't before.
We're ready to prove ourselves. We don't want the conference label of competition anymore. We're ready to take that next level. They did it. Other programs should as well, especially if you're like in Illinois. Schedule a Kentucky or somebody else who you can say, this is, not a big powerhouse or anything, but here's another Power 5 conference win, which helps their resume at the end of the year. But sorry to go on a tangent there.
That's all right. That's all right. You've been waiting, probably holding. I could not hold that in. I don't know how you did. Anyway, we got MSU hockey to talk about, and just for the record, all right. And I think I had both of you on at one point, right? We had Alex. Were you on Take This at one point?
Yes,
you were, and then Clay, I was on your podcast. That's what it was. So I was talking to Alex about MSU hockey at one point. Well, and the Red Wings. Griff and I had done that show, and then Clay has a podcast, MSU Hockey Hub. Right? If you want to go to Twitter, it's MSU_H_H. Links, all that will be in the description, just in case anyone needs to find it. But so just to refresh everyone real quick, because this will be an individual clip, but Alex is a writer who covers MSU hockey at the State News, and Clay is he covers MSU hockey
owner.
Yeah, the Twitter account owner of the Michigan State Hockey Hub. So it
is a great Twitter account though. So.
It's
fantastic.
It's good because you don't get a lot of college hockey coverage, especially in teams that are not notoriously juggernauts, right? So and I know that Michigan State was good in the early 2000s and even went to the tournament in 2012, but that's not something that you would not consider Michigan State hockey to be top line, right? Like it's not basketball.
Not a BU or a Michigan.
Right, or even a Western Michigan who was showing some like Western Michigan has some good coverage too with the something Herald, I can't remember, but anyway, that's besides the point. So we got good stuff. This would be I just wanted to say this would be a very different conversation that we would be having if this was 2 months ago. This conversation about Michigan State hockey would be very different because the first game, and I just got sort of thrown into the hockey stuff. But when I started covering them, this was like this year, because I had been doing some stuff for Fansided, and I was like kind of over that, hump, and I had just made the transition from like music to sports, and I was mostly like just really interested in what Michigan State had, but I didn't want to get stuck with like the overwhelming nature that basketball can have or like football can have. And so I picked a smaller sport, and hockey I've always been like interested in. And Michigan State's kind of actually been on kind of the upswing. Like the trajectory this year from last year was pretty good. And, even as hopeless as it sounds, but I was really hopeful, I think, especially with like Mitchell Lewandowski being like as good as he's been and stuff like that. But then the Great Lakes Invitational hits, they play a better team in Western Michigan. And even though like there were chances that they could have had to win that game, they didn't pull through. They ended up pulling through against Michigan Tech, who I don't know what that was. Michigan Tech fans are something, very much something. But then 2022 comes, and they got Minnesota, who they play, and I'm just like, what is this? Not looking good. But Lewandowski's out. So Lewandowski gets injured, who had already been injured. And so you kind of get this whiplash of this team who's going from like, I don't want to say that they could have won the Big Ten, but they could have finished fourth, maybe. That was like their ceiling this year. And now, what do you got? Like fifth at best? They were just in fifth. So like sorry, I accidentally went to you. The whiplash from just from something that was so high potential, it just kind of sucks, right?
Yeah. So, excuse me. I had both of you all on my podcast during the span where Michigan State was playing well. They were not dominating, but they were performing at a better rate than they were the previous year. And I said it to both of you all. I've said it over and over again. Okay, that's great. They have this break coming up. They have 2 legit hockey programs that they have to play. And then they have the real thick of the schedule. Those teams that are ahead of them, that were on their schedule in January, it was all Big Ten from here on out. This is where you show if you're legit or not. And they simply have shown that they're not legit. Those games in the GLI, I was still holding out hope. I actually met Brad on the concourse before, and we were talking about them. And that first game against Western Michigan, they held in there, and that's a good team. So I was like, okay. And then they beat Michigan Tech in OT. And then they just come out to Minnesota, and, they blow a 3-1 lead at one point, give up, I think, 5 straight goals or 4 straight goals or something. Just look terrible. And at this point, and I would never, especially me being on the outside, not being around these, I'm not going to question anyone's determination or effort or whatnot. But, just from their play, it looks at times that it's just, I wouldn't use the word lazy, but just kind of unorganized or maybe not totally focused. There's just too many times during a game, you play 60 minutes and they seem to think that you play 30, 35 minutes some nights. And it's getting hard. This is year 5 of Coach Cole. And he has a well below 500 average across his coaching career. Tom Anastas was brought in and was given 6 years. And, it's been 5 years since Anastas left. And really, has this program changed the trajectory at all? And if you ask me, I would say no, not right now. It takes longer to recruit and kind of turn a team around. But the talent Cole's brought in has not been a lot of the goal scorers. Lewandowski was an Anastas guy, and so was Dennis Cesana. And it's just kind of looking to me, okay, where do you go from here? I mean, this team, I mean, the season's more or less lost at this point. But do we have much to build on going forward? The recruits, I follow it a little bit. It's really hard to follow. There's a couple that you could say, okay, this guy has some skills, some offense, but I would not say that there's a ton of thrill going forward with what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. You bring up the point about Cole too, and like it's something that I've like pondered, but again, like I kind of just got thrown into this, right? So like I don't want to be the guy that's going to be like, "Dude, should you be fired?" Like I don't want to, like cuz it's easier to have that opinion too when you're like, when you're frustrated. Like that's something that you say when you're like at your wit's end. I didn't even say stuff like that about relating to the Lions about Matt Patricia until like, I mean, I don't know. You could tell from the beginning that this dude was in over his head. But in a sport that is a lot less coverage, you're gonna see like it's a lot easier to be patient, because you're kind of you're not given the benefit of the doubt, right? Or you're given you should be given the benefit of the doubt, I should say. Because Michigan State, again, it's not that juggernaut school that you're going to see at like Michigan or, in like football. If you got like, you just saw like LSU fire their coach, it's not like this isn't that, after like the first year. But again, like you mentioned the patterns there, right? Like Michigan State had a coach for 6 years and then got rid of him because he was not giving Michigan State what they needed to get. And then, so again, like it's like sometimes how I track video game releases. Like this is when this publisher usually does this. This is the pattern. This is this is kind of that deadline. This is what you got to get to. And so, like it's I guess it's starting to get a little bit frustrating when you look at the history and and someone may ask like, why is this guy still like, is he on the hot seat?
Yeah, and just a couple of things to consider. First off, I am not one of those let's fire everybody guy. I'm not even saying to fire Cole. I'm just saying these are questions that are generating in my head of, okay, well, just
right.
Taking a 10,000-foot view. The only person I've ever wanted fired in my life was Rex Ryan from the Buffalo Bills. And that's just for obvious reasons. Rex Ryan is just a very difficult human being, and I won't go into that, but so one thing to consider, when Coach Cole was hired 5 years ago, that was a different athletic director. We have a new athletic director in Michigan State now. Mm-hmm. Who knows? He hasn't been able to show patterns. He's brand new. Maybe he has a short leash. Maybe he has a long leash. Maybe he puts a lot more focus on hockey. Maybe he brings some back if that's even possible. There's just too many unknowns, and we haven't had time to kind of see trends yet. I would imagine that they stick with Cole. College hockey, a lot of these big programs, like when Red retired from Michigan, they immediately got Mel, and he's like a top-notch coach. Michigan State's kind of had this, let's go after these guys who, with Anastas and Cole played on the 86 championship team, see if they can bring some spark. I think Cole is a better coach than Tom Anastas. And what Danton Cole's also brought that should not go unnoticed here is the facilities. He was the one in charge of kind of getting all that together, raising the money, and that should theoretically help with recruiting. But to me, this team, it's more than just the X's and O's of the coach, which I think bad X's and O's will get you fired quicker than recruiting, in my opinion, because you need time to see. And I don't even think it's as much as just bad X's and O's. The talent is just, when you look at these other line charts, Minnesota, everyone that you play in the Big Ten, they put them out, and what's to the right of each player's name? Their NHL draft affiliate. And you look at Michigan State's, and you see Calgary Flames with Mitchell Matson, who is in and out of the lineup, and Josh Nodler, who started hot, and recently has taken a step back. 5th round pick, not exactly a projected NHL. You just don't see a lot of that talent that evaluators in the NHL who draft players have selected. So it's not that they don't have talented players. It's just you can't have a team full of bottom 6 guys, and that's kind of what Michigan State has looked like more often than not. Lewandowski being out is really just showing in every facet. And, he's gone after this year. He was kind of the super senior COVID senior guy. So Drew DeRitter's gone. It's going to be tough. And that's one of those things that I'm thinking, okay, 2 of your best players are gone next year. Sure, others will grow, but you're relying a lot this year. I mean, they're good because of those 2 players and a few others. Sassano will be gone as well. The Kriegers gone as well. So that's when you really got to ask yourself, okay, what's this team going to look like next year? And if this is another just dumpster fire, how many years in a row can you put that? I mean, it's not even against Cole. I'm just take his name out of the hat and just say a coach hasn't really produced at the level you want for 6 straight years in a program that, hockey's not making a ton of money. You can't afford to just let it. The fans that it does have, you cannot afford to let them kind of fall by the wayside because it's, the fans are loyal. Right. It's not like basketball where you get a bunch of kind of people who tune in some here and there and whatnot. These are loyal fans. And if you start to lose those, then that's when you're really in trouble.
Michigan State, too, had sold a lot of tickets for that Ohio State game. That was on a 6-game slide. So, you want to talk about loyalty. Like, that's something I noticed.
I hear it all the time from people on Twitter. People are starving for Michigan State hockey to get back.
It would just make it so much more exciting because you got that big rivalry. But, like, how many states can say that they got that? You know what I mean? Like, you got 2 big name programs, like, with a national brand, right? Like, and I'm not talking about, like, Michigan State, like, hockey being a national brand. But you got, like, Michigan State, just athletics is a national brand, right? And you got Michigan, a national brand, one of the biggest college brands. And you have, well, actually, I would say the biggest fan base. But anyway, you got these 2 teams, right, who compete every year in hockey, and they play a game in Detroit where hockey is one of the biggest sports in the market. Like, you got people who are asking for hockey talk on the radio. I'm like, that does not happen in any other city. Talking about hockey is like a death shot, a gun wound, like, anywhere, just because it's nobody cares, but in Detroit, like, that matters to people. And, like, it would do so much, is when, like, both these teams would be good. Like, they just do so much. So it's starving almost. Minnesota, what? Like, Minnesota against Duluth, Minnesota? Like, that would be fun to watch. Like, that would be great to watch. But, like, I don't know who the fuck Minnesota Duluth is. I don't know where it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just don't, I don't know. Okay, yeah, but I've never heard of the school.
Yeah,
Sorry.
If you showed me a map of Minnesota, I might as well just throw a dart at it and say that's where Duluth is. I don't know. I'm sure that
right.
others do
I don't know where that is. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry that I didn't take a geography class.
I think this next season is really going to be sink or swim for Dan Cole. This year, I think a lot of coaches, especially in a sport that doesn't get as much attention like a hockey, I think they're going to give them some COVID leeway. Just kind of inherently, they're just going to do that. But losing those 2 essential guys, or not even 2, the Krieger brothers, Sassana, DeRitter, Lewandowski, it's going to have to be freshmen and recruits next year. And if he dips into the portal, next year is really going to say, hey, these are your guys. You have you have David Gucciardi, you have Tanner Kelly. Who's the freshman I'm forgetting? There's one other freshman who's done good. Tucker.
Tucker.
Yeah, you have a couple of freshmen, but can they carry a team? I have questions about that. So I think this year, well disappointing. I don't think this will make or break it. I think it's next year. I think it's next year when you have all your guys. You can dip into the portal. Like you were mentioning with the new athletic director, we're going to kind of see what direction he kind of goes with hockey, because he got them the new facilities. Like certain things about the program look to be trending up, but I think in the end it's just going to be next year. We're going to see what goes on with coaching.
So, and I wanted to talk real quick about Gucciardi. A lot of people apparently, the interesting thing to me is that so you got three freshmen, right? Mainly, right? And two of them are forwards, and one of them is Gucciardi, which, defenseman. So the interesting thing to me is that, and Alex, I think you brought this up to me, and I didn't really notice it until really I started watching. But Michigan State doesn't have any they're not creative. They don't get that creativity, when David Gucciardi, I swear to God, I jumped up so fast at this, but when David Gucciardi scored that game-winning goal in OT against Michigan Tech, I was like, that is the most creative thing I think I've seen them do all year. Just because it was in overtime, it was 3-on-3, stuff like that. But with Gucciardi, I feel like that, he's just been a guy that's been just kind of a spark, if anything, if the team has one, without Lewandowski. Middendorf's been good and other stuff like that, but Gucciardi's been kind of the guy that I've just been kind of watching, because I think it wasn't what it was for me that really what really set that up was when he did the backwards pass the other game. I think it was against Ohio State, right? I don't know if you guys caught that, where he what did he do? He
maintained offensive zone possession and kind of flipped it over. He did a little spin.
Right.
I know exactly what you're talking about. He was in the offensive zone, did a little flip and passed it around to the point at the left, and then he kind of moved in and shot it. The other guy did, and that was a very clever move. That was a nice thing.
Right, and it was just stupid little stuff like that is just something that can. It's not something that's gonna win you games, but it's something that is very it's something nice to see, especially when you you mentioned, you're gonna see this team rely a lot more on their guys that are just they're young, they're inexperienced, you're gonna see a lot more reliance on that. Have you guys seen any sort of anything through, I know the portal's an option, but with recruiting, anything that is just kind of jumps off the page?
So they did land a recruit. I think it's 2024. And in terms of Michigan State hockey recruiting, Jeremy Dewar does the best job of anyone following that.
Yes.
And if you ever go to his Twitter page, it's Jer Bear, I think. He actually has a spreadsheet that he updates, and when the players are coming, which year, who's committed, all that stuff. So that's a very good resource for those of you who want to follow. But Christian Kim, not Christian Kirk, that's the wide receiver for the Cardinals. Christian Kim committed, and he does have offensive upside. And he had, I think, 97 points in 49 games or something crazy like that. That's a guy who caught my eye. And Jeremy, when I talked to him about it, really had high praises for him. But again, it's so hard to project, and it takes kids a while to transition once they come in as a freshman. But really, you have to start recruiting more offense. Too often, if you look at these recruiting classes and you research the person's name on Elite Prospects, you pull up, they play 25 games and have 6 points. And that's not, there's definitely room on a roster for players like that. You just can't fill up the entire roster like that. A lot of these top talents, my biggest issue with recruiting is the local kids are going elsewhere. They're filtering to Michigan, they're filtering to Wisconsin, or we really are not pulling a lot of Michigan kids who are kind of at the top of the recruiting classes from there. And I really don't know what the answer is. Hopefully, better facilities help.
Western Michigan being this season? I mean, because what? This is a surprise for them. That's probably not going to help Michigan State's case.
Yeah, and they're a pretty good program overall, but you can put it's kind of like if you have a Porsche and you have the nicest rims and the freshest paint job and all these aftermarket things, that's kind of the facilities and kind of the promoting the school. Winning is the engine. You have to win. Not a lot of talented players are going to say, "Okay, I'm going to go to insert mediocre program or below average program." They're going to go to teams that win. So yeah, the facilities help and all that, jazz helps. But when it all comes down to it, players want to play for the top programs. If you look across the NHL draft in the first round or two, players who are playing in college, it's not often that someone gets drafted from a college that's not very good. It seems like it's always kind of top tier programs because that's where the talent kind of levitates towards. So Michigan State has a lot to figure out. I don't know what the answer is. I'm glad that I'm not the one making the decisions. But it all boils back down to the talent on the ice. And they do have some talented players, some skilled players. Jesse Tucker, I think, is a playmaker, not really much of a scorer yet. I think he'll develop into that. We saw Tanner Kelly with the redirection goal. That kid has skill. He's going to have to settle in. Tiernan Chowdy is coming in next year, and he'll be a freshman. He played with Tanner Kelly on the same line in juniors. I wonder if they try to match those two up again and see if they can't recreate some magic, because Kelly put up some points in junior. So, but yeah, it's really just the amount that they're losing. Now, there's a famous quote, right, from, I think it was a Michigan State basketball coach or Jed Heathcote. The good news is we have everyone back. The bad news is we have everybody back. And that's kind of the thing I look at with, oh man, I wish a lot of these seniors could come back. But at the same time, like, there's certain seniors that I think it's time for them to kind of move on and see if we can't, they've kind of proven what they are, and the program isn't taking off with where they are right now. I think the D-line or the defense, getting some new players in there just to see what it could look like could help.
You just touched on it right there. The defense kind of reloading there and being able to update. Like David Gucciardi, for example. I've talked about him all year. I think he has the most raw talent on the team. In fact, I think he could be drafted in this year's draft. He has really good hands for a defenseman, really soft hands. He is a quick skater, makes intelligent, kind of crafty decisions, tries to do a little too much on his own sometimes. But I think that's the kind of guy, if you groom him for a role as a top defenseman, he's going to look really good by the time he's a junior or a senior. So I think that's really key is next year. Like I was saying, kind of you get some of those rookies you were talking about, some of those young guys, and slot them in, kind of see the seniors out. Dan Cole likes his guys to be hard, gritty, like experienced guys, and that's why he relies so much on seniors. It's going to be refreshing to see kind of a new team and kind of a new face of the team. I don't know. That's the main storyline I'm going to be keeping an eye on next year.
Interesting. I like it. I just love to see it. Great to get some hockey talk in. I really wanted to pivot real quick, just for a quick moment, because Alex and I were out here doing our Super Bowl, projections and everything. I know that, Alex, you had, said Chiefs and Rams. Is that right? In the Super Bowl. Who do you think is going to win? Alex.
Me?
No, Alex.
Oh, I was
Alex first. We never went to our Super Bowl predictions.
Oh. Okay.
Oh.
This is way pivot.
Oh. You know what? I'll go with Stafford. I'll go with Maddie. I think Maddie gets it done. Okay. Let's go Rams.
That's great. Okay, so we didn't touch this with Clay at all. But who do you got making the Super Bowl, and who's going to win it?
Sure, I'll give you I'll try to make this brief. Chiefs, from what I saw from that game, there's just a certain clutch gene. There's a certain thing about Patrick Mahomes who can escape sacks and create that is just going to wear the Bengals defense down. And this is not an anti-Bengals thing whatsoever, but how often do you see an offense led by extremely young, inexperienced talent charge all the way to the Super Bowl? It's not often. They beat a Raiders team who had all kinds of issues during the season. It's a miracle that they made the playoffs. I'm not taking anything away from the Bengals. They beat a good Titans team, a limited Titans team, but a good team. And I just think it's going to be difficult. I mean, you're talking about the Chiefs, who have as much experience in these situations as any team in the past 5 years, coming in, and you're making Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, these young, inexperienced, I don't know if inexperienced, but not playoff experienced players go into Kansas City to win. I just don't see a formula. I think Kansas City wins by 2 touchdowns, at least 2 scores. And I do not understand the 49ers. I don't know how they're doing this because I am not a Jimmy G believer. I am and always have been a Matt Stafford fan. Cam Akers coming back has been huge for the Rams. Sony Michel, Cam Akers, getting that running game going. Odell Beckham is playing well, even though I'm not a fan. And, of course, I mean, Cooper Kupp, best receiver in the league, in my opinion. He can do everything. I think that's going to be a lot to handle. And I would be hard-pressed to find somebody else who truly, deep down wants the Super Bowl more than Matt Stafford. I mean, that guy went through, and this is no dig on you all, he went through Detroit for years.
Oh, yeah.
And
dude, at one point I was like, why doesn't he just walk away?
Finally getting his chance in the LA Sun. I think it's going to be Rams, Chiefs, and I would hate to see Jackson Mahomes dancing. So give me Matthew Stafford and any baggage you think may come with his family over the dancing Mahomes.
I love it.
Love it. So I had made a couple bold predictions before. I think this was like one of the very, very, very first weeks of the football season, right? So I made a couple. One of them was that Alabama, and I'm gonna say this again, but Alabama would lose that one game during the regular season. And that was, I thought they were beatable. They looked a little bit off. And I thought that this might just be a down year, one loss down year, but they're gonna be off to and they're gonna lose to a Texas A&M team who's kind of gritty. But then I also said that Matthew Stafford would win a Super Bowl. That was one of my big predictions that I was like, you know what? Fuck it. He's gonna do it. He's gonna get there. He's gonna do it. So I do have again, the only reason I picked the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl is just because I got to win a bet, dude. I got to win a bet. And, but that's about it. And so, but again, Stafford winning would be the topping on the cake for me. That's all I'll say.
And honestly, it's a little disrespectful that I even list Joe Burrow as inexperienced considering how poised he is and he has a national championship. I just think it's going to be so...
Yeah, but it's Patrick Mahomes.
You let an experienced, proven defensive coordinator draw up coverages, disguise coverages over top, make him go to his second, third reads, force him to be able to read post-snap. I mean, it is going to put a lot on his plate in Kansas City, a tough environment. But yeah, I mean, go Matt Stafford. Former Michigan State center Brian Allen, right? Center for the Los Angeles Rams. But that will go down as the worst jerseys ever to win a Super Bowl if the Rams win.
Oh, my God. I know. I don't understand the gradient. I don't understand it. I just don't get it. But, their logo, it sucks, Because as someone who is a graphic designer and designs shit for Twitter... do you know how hard it is to change that yellow? Because you can't just change it because what I would do to put it on a solid background is you would just paint bucket it. Super easy, right? With a gradient, now you got to go into this thing and you got to now add a gradient overlay. I'm like, the fuck is that? So that's why when we did our picks up here, when I put this on screen, you see that? I didn't even try. I just kept it blue because that is impossible to change because it's not all the same color. And just not graphic designer's worst hell. But
before we wrap up any type of talk or Super Bowl talk, I do want to say one quick thing about the Buffalo Bills, the whole entire debacle that went on. Josh Allen was 9-0 on coin tosses in his career. 9-0 on a 50-50 coin toss. Comes in and loses the coin toss.
Oh my god.
Yikes. That is God, that's so funny. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. Sorry. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. This was great. Very, very fun. Thank you to everyone who watched on the Twitter. I'm like, it's too loud. Thank you to everyone who watched on Twitter. Thank you to everyone who will listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, all of the podcast sites I don't even know existed, but now I do. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you guys again next time.